Okay, welcome everyone for the closing remarks of the 42nd IEEE Symposium on Security and Privacy. Again, I am Alvaro Cárdenas at UC from UC Santa Cruz, and I am the IEEE S&P 2021 General Chair. So thank you first, all of you, for attending. We had a good number of registrations and participations in the conference. I was very happy about that. So we crossed over 1,259 registrations, at least as of this morning, and we had more than 45 countries represented. So the registration chair is going to give more details in his presentation later on in the technical committee meeting. But I just wanted to give the big overview and the representation by country. So mostly US, but we also have Germany, the UK, Switzerland, France, and others. So the goals for this conference was to support new and old activities as well in virtual space as much as we could. So we supported traditional activities like speed mentoring, the poster session, and short videos with different formats to try to change the format a little bit of the conference. So speed mentoring took advantage of this random meeting, one-on-one meetings that Hopin provides, the posters. We were able to work with a virtual chair to host posters in gather.town, so you could have your little sprite moving around. And the short videos also to change a little bit the format were live. So hopefully that changed a little bit the monotony of having a virtual event. So hopefully you appreciated that. We also had new activities this year, an ethics panel. Hopefully you enjoyed that. It was an opportunity to try to move our community forward in thinking and taking ownership of the ethics and safety for our research. We also proposed virtual socials. I think we had a slow start this year. I went to all of them, and we had between 4 to 20 participants in each of them, which was around a small number of, but we still enjoyed it, and I think there's room for improvement. So hopefully next year we will probably do better publicity for these events and create communities and also support, creation building, community building in our event. We also are introducing the Trojan Awards, and I'll say a little bit more about that at the end of my presentation. We also try to accommodate different time zones, because we're aware that we're not technically in Oakland anymore, and so this is virtual. And so we had events starting at 6 a.m. like the poster session, or 7 a.m. the live talks today. And tomorrow we gave the workshops the freedom to choose their start date. So we have a workshop that starts fairly early. I think it's the Network Measurement Conference that starts fairly early, and some workshops go late in the day. So hopefully you'll have a full day of activities if you want to participate in the workshops as well. We had new diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. This is new for this year, and this is only the beginning. Hopefully we will continue expanding them. So part of this was the socials, part of it was the speed mentoring, part of it is also the student travel grants, making sure the videos are accessible with closed caption. Some people were wondering if we could turn on the closed caption, so that's something maybe we can try to figure out in the future to balance equity and inclusion, and at the same time provide a streamlined experience for others. So we had also one of the big challenges this year was the balancing the prices, while at the same time, the registration prices, while at the same time providing a professionally supported and quality event. And it didn't help that the pandemic make the planning a little bit uncertain. So for the longest time, we were hoping we could do this in person. So we were waiting and see how the situation progressed. And then when it was obvious this was going to be virtual, we had to figure out what were the things that we wanted to provide virtually. And at the same time, we had to get the support of online platforms like Hopin and Virtual Chair for posters. And we also needed the support of a professional team for running the event, like executive events. So it was a balancing act, but hopefully everything went together and we managed to keep registration reasonably low. We also provided lots of opportunities for networking So I saw there were at least 977 chat messages exchanged between individual people, 357 networking meetings, like one-on-one meetings through Hopin, 66 connection requests. That's when you were in the one-on-one meeting, and there's an option in the corner, top right corner, that allowed you to connect with people. And 5 scheduled meetings. So only 5 people scheduled meetings with other people, presumably that they knew in advance. I guess they looked in the people tab and they found someone they wanted to talk, and they scheduled a meeting. So that was fun. Yeah, we had a lot of chat messages in all over the place. The stage room B had the more messages, the most messages. Short talks was also fairly active. The Intel booth was also active, and they were presenting a live presentation during the launch today. So I think that contributed to that. And we also had, some of the virtual socials are there represented. So the virtual social on women in security had some activity in the chats, and also the virtual session on the deep learning for cybersecurity as well. So yeah, we were testing some poll results for our polls for our poll that we're going to do later today for electing the vice chair of the TC. So yeah, the first one is you prefer virtual platforms. So I'm happy to see that people were generally, they generally seem to like Hopin. So it was not a large number of votes because the polls were created last night, but at least from the small sample that we obtained, it was the more popular one. So I'm happy that people enjoyed the platform and are reasonably happy. The second runner-up is the traditional conferences, or at least traditional for me. That's the format that I've been attending the most, with the Zoom and Slack, and then some other way of authenticating users as 20. Yeah, I struggled a lot trying to decide between Hopin and having something like virtual chair, like CCS last year, because that was kind of fun sometimes. But I was wondering, maybe people appreciate having the fun, like for posters or a restricted time, but then like for you have your sprite and you can act like a video game going around. But then when it's time for asking questions and finding presentations, then it was easier through Hopin. And there's 3 votes for the platform that we used last year. So I guess some people just like to see the world burn. It was our first attempt. Have you met anyone during this event? Yes. So about half and half among the people So I guess some of the people, at least 27 of them, didn't randomly use the Meet new people. What is your favorite social event? So it seems the most popular event for socially interacting with people was the one with one meetups through the Meet New People tab. So the one that allow you to meet 3 people for 3 minutes, random people, and it was new every time. So if you already met someone, they wouldn't sync you with that person again. The second one was the posters, which we still have the chance of doing it today. And virtual socials didn't get high. Again, it was low participation, but hopefully we can do better next year. So as a last notice, this is the last time to enjoy posters and networking gather.town, which is facilitated by Virtual Chair. So so right after our TC meeting ends, you can go to the posters and have one last 2 hours of fun there, meeting with people and asking about poster presentations. So today is the last day of our symposium, but tomorrow we have an exciting set of workshops. As I was saying, some of them start very early during the day, like WTMC, and some of them have even 2 days, like LangSec. But WTMC, Conpro, DLS, LangSec, Save Things 2021, SAD FE, and Wood. We're very happy also to host these workshops, and also happy that Wood joined us this year. And thank you, everyone. This is a team effort. Amazing work by all the volunteers. This is again all volunteer. We all do this in our spare time while trying to manage our careers. So everyone from the program chairs, the vice chair and registration chair, treasurer, video chairs, donations chairs, publication chair, the publicity chair, Scott Ruti, student travel committee chair, workshops chair, poster chair, and and everyone else. Thank you so much for all your support. Thank you for the Technical Committee on Security and Privacy for supporting this event, and the Computer Society as well for helping us, especially Paula Anderson, for all the help you gave us in trying to execute our contracts. Thank you to the executive events team. I hope people appreciate the conference was run by them. So if you remember our physical events, so the team at executive events, they were helping us in the registration and dealing with hotel. And in the last 2 years, I think they became experts in running virtual conferences. I think maybe 3 months ago, none of us knew how to run a conference in Hopin. Not Regan, Kate, Brittany, or Gigi, but they stepped up and they figured out all the details. We did have some hiccups during the way, but I think they were corrected very fast, and overall it was a very well-run conference. So thank you very much, the EE team. And the online platform support for our platforms, Erika Santiago from Hopin and Rita Crowley from Virtual Chair. Now, I wanted to, before introducing the video awards with Rui, our video chair, I wanted to discuss briefly how we came with this idea. So we've been discussing this idea for a while. We see a lot of very interesting and a lot of effort that authors make for announcing the short video awards. And we were thinking we should have a way to recognize them, right? So we discussed the creation of this type of award with the organizing committee, with the program chairs, with the technical committee chairs, and we get overall good positive feedback, but we wanted to avoid also a couple of things. So the goal was to provide or to reward videos that supported effective communication and reached a broad audience. So in research and academia, our job should not only be to publish a paper and move on, but try to inform and communicate our research to a broader audience. So that's something we were trying to do here and reward. And we also wanted this to be, to support effective communication, and at the same time, keep these awards informal and fun. So that's why they're not announced with the initial awards at the opening ceremony. This is meant to be more of an informal, fun award selected by student participants. And we want to avoid some of the feedback we got is that we wanted to avoid encouraging funny videos without technical information, and we also want to put extra burden on paper authors. I mean, at the end of the day, these short videos are you can put as much effort as you want. So I mean, if you only want like a small slide summarizing, that's fine. But if you want to put a little bit more effort, that's also fine with us. So the selection committee, as I was saying, this is mostly basically they were all students. They were volunteers that participated in the shadow PC, in the student PC, and the chair of this committee was Rui Zhang. And now, let me introduce Rui so that she can take it away from here.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Let me start again. So thank you, Professor Cardenas, for the introduction. So welcome to the first IEEE Security and Privacy Children Video Awards. Hello? Next slide, please. So this year we received 112 talk preview videos in total, and we have been really impressed by the quality of the videos. So we appreciate the efforts that authors spend in making those videos. So the organization committee decided to create a new award, the Children Video Award, to recognize the high quality short videos. And this year we set 3 awards: the Best Screenplay Award, the Best Film Editing Award, and the Best Short Video Award. All submitted videos are automatically enrolled, and then we invite student Shadow PC members to review all the short videos. The reviewers evaluate the videos in terms of whether they are clear and understandable, and whether they give a good overview of the paper to the audience. And we also encourage videos that are creative and interesting to watch. So reviewers then nominate the videos for the awards, and when there is a tie of scores and number of nominations, we use the number of likes on YouTube to break the tie. So next, for the Best Screenplay Award, the winner is Hear No Evil, See Cannonsville, Efficient and Transferable Black Box Attacks on Speech Recognition and Voice Identification Systems from University of Florida. Congratulations.
In this paper, we propose an efficient, transferable black box attack that can work against both speech recognition and voice identification systems. Let's start off with an attack tutorial and play an audio file perturbed using our attack.
The emperor had a mean temper.
A human will correctly transcribe this audio file as the emperor had a mean temper. Let's play the sample one more time.
The emperor had a mean temper.
However, when the same audio sample is given to the Google Speech API, the audio sample produces an incorrect transcription. Our attack is untargeted, requires black box knowledge, can work against both speech recognition and voice identification systems, can work over the telephony network, is transferable, takes less than 15 queries, and mere seconds to generate. As a result, we have successfully demonstrated our attack against many, many models. For more information, you can check out the following website.
And next, for the Best Film Editing Award, the winner is Good Bot, Bad Bot, characterizing automated browsing activity from Stony Brook University. Congratulations.
In 2021, they voted my website as the worst place to access on the internet. Why, you ask? Sky-high rates of attacks, more bots than humans constantly hammering my server. Can't deny it's true. My website's not visible, not even advertised, yet every crawler still wants to get to it. My website has a promise for you. It has all the information you need to identify a bot. Browsing behaviors, access patterns, fingerprints, all neatly packed in a box. And it's not just the one. We have 100 websites like this, which attracted 26 million bot requests in our 7-month experiment. We captured brute force attempts, the fingerprinting of deployed web applications, and the exploitation of a large number of vulnerabilities. We built a system for capturing and studying bots, and we are the bot hunters.
And finally, the Best Video Award is Reading Between the Lines, an extensive evaluation of the security and privacy implications of EPUB reading system from KU Leuven. Congratulations.
Oh, Daddy, will you read from the EPUB that Uncle Walter sent us?
Okay, but you really have to go to sleep after.
Yes, I promise.
Okay, let's see. I haven't heard of this one before. The Evil EPUB. Once upon a time, in the world of ebooks, there was an evil EPUB. Unlike all other EPUBs, the evil EPUB abused the capabilities bestowed on him by any insecure reading system.
But Daddy, how can a simple EPUB cause such bad things?
Well, my sweet child, you have to consider an EPUB as a self-containing website, and generally, all EPUB reading systems employ a browser engine to render it.
So these vulnerabilities are comparable to those between a browser and a malicious website?
Yes, little rascal, and even more. Little one?
Yeah, thanks. All these videos are accessible on our YouTube channel. And finally, we would like to thank authors who submit all these wonderful videos. And we would also like to thank our volunteer reviewers and organizers to make this award happen. Thanks again.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Rui, for leading the creation of these awards, and thank you everyone for your support. Now, I would like to introduce the technical committee chair, Brian Pardo, who from CMU.
Hello, everyone. It's now time for the technical committee meeting, and this is when the IEEE Technical Committee on Security and Privacy handles all of our business. The agenda for this afternoon or evening or morning, depending on where you are, is to talk a little bit about some technical details about the conference in terms of the finances, some experiments that were run. I will give you an overview of the Tcsp, remind you what it is for those of you who are not familiar. We'll hand out some awards and do some voting. All right, so initially I will hand it to Daniel, who is the treasurer for security and privacy this year, and he'll tell you about the finances.
Hi everyone. So just a brief summary of, I'm Daniel Tekabi, Georgia State University. I'm the treasurer this year. So brief summary of our finances. So we had, again, have in mind these numbers are estimates. We need to finalize this after the conference, but still working on it. So we have about 146,000 income, including roughly 60,000 from registration. And thanks to our donations chair, we had about 85,000 in donation. And technical committee also contributed to support for our international student registration grants. And we had about 124,000 expenses so far. A big chunk of it goes to the platform that supported the conference, including Hopin and virtual chair. 35,000 roughly spent on support for registration and planning and making sure basically all the events goes smoothly. 50,500 was the cost of proceedings, publication. Roughly 10,000 were allocated for, again, student registration grants and awards. And we have about 4,500 bank charges and roughly 1,200 other different expenses. So far, we have a expected surplus of about roughly 22,000, but again, the actual numbers might change slightly. I guess next, Rakesh is the vice chair and registration chair will update us on that.
Thank you, Daniel. Hi, everyone. My name is Rakesh Baba. I'm from Oregon State University and was the registration chair for S&P 21. So Alvaro talked a little bit about the changes from conference going online. So the changes are also reflected in the registration system. We did not have separate registrations for the symposium and workshops like we traditionally do for an in-person conference. There was no difference between early registrations or late registrations or for members and non-members. We had three simple registration categories, one for paper presenters. Each paper had to have one paper a paper registration, we called it, and then two registrations categories, one for general attendees and a little discounted student attendee registrations. Executive events, Alvaro gave a shout out to them to how smoothly they've run the production for this event. They continue to provide great help in managing the registration process as well, so thanks to them. We had a smooth registration process. This year, we had a total of 1,231 as of last night. Alvaro gave you a higher number earlier, I think 1,280. More registrations came in this morning. And this is, by any means a record number of attendance for this conference compared to all our previous, except for last year. Last year we had close to 2,000 registrations, so that's why I'm showing you a 37% drop. But last year S&P was one of the first security conferences to go online, and I think it was generated a lot of interest. We had a lot of registrants from internationally. So this year, I think, I'm assuming, people are fatigued with online conferences. And so we expected a drop, and I think we were expecting much lower registrations, but we're very happy with the number of registrations. They turned out much higher than we expected. So thank you all for attending and supporting this conference. Just a rough split. About half the registrations are general attendee and about half are student registrations. We had about 116 papers in the main track, and we have a whole bunch of great papers coming up in workshops. So we had close to 176 paper registrations, and the remaining are donors or other volunteers or keynote speakers and so on. Next slide, please. So Alvaro mentioned that we had representation from 45 countries, and the top ones being 60% is from the United States, which is traditionally the case for S&P. But we had significant numbers from Germany, United Kingdom, Switzerland, France, South Korea, China. As you can see, all this graph shows the list of all the countries represented. Thank you all. It's not easy to attend this conference, especially in past Europe in the time zone. So thank you for joining and supporting the conference. Next slide. Just looking at a slightly different split up of the total. So general attendees are about 450 to about half. Student attendees in 406. Previously, I showed 455 because within the paper registrations, some of them are students, and within the other registrations, some of them are students. This is just another view to look at the pie of registrations. Next slide, please, Brian. I talked about a dip in the registration compared to last year, but if you look at compared to the previous years, we've been seeing a trend, 7 to 10% increase every year. Last year was phenomenal. We had almost 180% increase when we went online for the first time. In this year, we lost about 30% of that audience. In the past, we collected information about member and non-member. Because this year, different registration system, we weren't able to collect that information. So I kept members and non-members together in one category. Next slide, please, Brian. Student participation has been quite steady over the last few years. It typically varies between 35 to 40%. And I think this year we were close to 37%. So we work hard to make the conference accessible to as many students as possible through student grants and so on. And we appreciate student participation. So thank you all for coming, and faculty and advisors, thank you for encouraging your students to participate. Just wanted to see the top, give a shout out to the top institutions from which attendees have come in big numbers. I've picked all the institutions where there are 10 or more participants. Intel tops the list at 18 this year. I believe last year it was Microsoft. Then CISPA, I was really surprised. They have 17 registrations from CISPA. And then Georgia Tech, Northeastern, Santa Cruz, and Purdue. And we had VU Amsterdam rounds us out with Microsoft, ETH, and EPFL, and Cornell, 10 each. So I think this year was a great year to encourage participation from students. So I'm really glad these institutions encouraged all their students to attend. Thank you. That's all for me. I can take questions later if there is open.
Hi, everyone. So thanks, Brian, for the introduction. Here, I want to share some observations and reflections Riza and I had for the Shadow PC this year. It was a great experience for us as Shadow PC chairs and we got lots of good feedback from junior reviewers. Next slide, please. Today, I will cover the objectives, new things we tried, the process, and the results. Next slide, please. First, our major goal for the Shadow PC is to educate the junior reviewers. In fact, we selected top reviewers from the Shadow PC to join the main PC next year. Many students also think they learned a lot from this process. Second, to make sure we train them very well, we emphasized the discussions this year. We tried several things, such as postpone the decision-making to the end of the review process, had multiple rounds of discussions. I will introduce more details about these new things in the next slide. Next slide, please. There are mainly two new things we tried to emphasize the discussions. First, our review form didn't have accept, reject options until the end of the discussions. Here, we asked reviewers to focus on the research value instead of making the decisions. We also had 4 rounds of discussions, where we encouraged people to read each other's reviews and update their own reviews. Second, we emphasized the role of the discussion lead, so they would be responsible for others' reviews and write a meta review. We also encouraged people to use the review readings extensively. Next slide, please. Okay, now I will introduce the overall process and results. First, for the pre-PC meeting, the Shadow PC is very selective. We first had a PC onboard meeting to explain the review and the discussion process. The Shadow PC reviewed 187 papers in total. These are all in the winter's submission cycle. They went through the process similar to the main PC, so bidding, reviewing, and online discussions. Next slide, please. At the point of the PC meeting, we already had 4 rounds of discussions, so reviewers already reached consensus for most papers. We went over 15 most difficult papers during a 3-hour online PC meeting. Next slide, please. You might be wondering how the results look like compared to the main PC, especially after we try these new things. It looks like the Shadow PC tended to be more positive compared to the main PC. So they gave a few more accept and many more revised decisions. The acceptance rate could be over 41% if we accept all the revised papers, and will be around 14% if we reject all the revised papers. Next slide, please. When we look into exactly what papers were rejected and accepted by the Shadow PC, we find that the Shadow PC agreed with 59% of the papers with the main PC. Interestingly, results seem to be very different for the accepted papers. The 2 PC groups seem to be quite consistent when it comes to what are the worst papers to reject, but had fairly different ideas to select what papers to accept. That's the process and results for this year. We want to thank Alina and Sustin for all the feedback and the organization committee for all the help. We also want to thank the Shadow PC members for all their great work. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody for contributing your reports. So the next order of business is to share with you the updates for next year's conference. So we're fortunate to have, for our general chair for 2022 will be Rakesh Boba, who was the vice chair this year. The vice chair will be Daniel, who was the treasurer this year. And the PC chairs will be Thorsten Holtz, who was the junior PC chair last year. And the new junior PC chair will be Tom Ristenpart from Cornell Tech. So these are the folks who will be running the show for the conference. And of course, the big challenge for the conference next year will be trying to figure out how to move back to an in-person meeting. Hopefully, we'll be at a point where that is possible. And yet, it would be nice to find ways to keep all the things that people have enjoyed about the virtual format. For example, the ability to have many more attendees and attendees from a wider geographic, drawing from wider geographic locations than our in-person meeting does. So I think the new PC and the new general chairs have their work cut out for them. So that brings us to the technical committee business. So for those of you who are not familiar, IEEE divides all of its organizations into various technical committees on different topics. And one of those committees is the Security and Privacy Committee. And the Security and Privacy Committee actually oversees not just Oakland or the S&P Symposium, but quite a few other activities, which I will get to shortly. So the previous chair of the TCSP was Ulfar Erlingsen, who served last year and part of this year. I've been the vice chair since 2020 and have very recently stepped into the role as the chair and will continue to be the chair for the next 2 years. And the treasurer, Yang Guan, has been extremely helpful, making sure that we both get the money that we were supposed to be getting and that we're spending it appropriately. We've also had help from Hillary Orman, our longtime newsletter editor, from Ulf Lindquist, who's been kindly helping us with all kinds of sysadmin tasks well beyond his term of duty. And we had some great support from EJ Jung, helping with TCSP level awards. So as a reminder, the TCSP is an organization within IEEE, has more than 3,000 members, which very likely includes you. If it doesn't, please consider joining the TCSP. You can go to the computer.org website and sign up. It is free. It's just a box that you tick off either now or when you are renewing your IEEE membership. And IEEE is excited when we have lots more members. So what does the TCSP do? Well, it financially co-sponsors the conferences you see here. So we are the full financial sponsor for S&P, for the Computer Security Foundation Symposium, for the European version of S&P, the SecDev conference, which is focused on secure development practices, and for the Hardware Security Conference host, or for 50% of it. And that means that when they have, we oversee their budgets. When they go over, that adds to our overall budget. When they fall short, we are part of the mechanism that helps make up for that. And then we also sponsor a variety of other activities using our budget. Give you a sense of the overall status of the TCSP. I have some numbers that I've collected here on the latest round of all these different conferences. You can see that in the last year, they've all been online, and the number of attendees has been ranged from thousands for S&P to hundreds for Euro S&P, and smaller numbers for SecDev and for CSF and host. And hopefully next year we'll start to transition these back to in-person meetings. So in terms of financials, we don't have a huge budget. We have about 36,000 for the upcoming financial year. And some of that is going to help paying off a deficit from one of our conferences, which was in the red a couple of years ago. And more of it is going towards things like operations. So we are working on moving towards a place where we can help the conferences host things like their web presence and their paper submission process, and have a dedicated IT admin for it rather than relying on volunteers. We also help pay for some test of time and other awards from the TCSP. And then we also spend a fair bit of our budget on things like the speed mentoring events and also various registration awards to the different conferences, including S&P. In addition to finances, we also help create various policies that affect the different conferences that are within our umbrella. So in the last year, we added some new rules to these conferences for disclosing financial conflicts of interest. So we've asked all of the conferences to have both authors and PC members mention when they have some conflict of interest, which might arise from the fact that maybe one of the authors is doing a startup based on their paper, or maybe one of the PC members has invested or is serving on the technical board for one of the cryptocurrencies. And we want to make sure that that information is properly disclosed, so we can take that into account when making decisions about conflicts for reviewing papers on both sides of the review process. We've also worked with the conferences and workshops to make sure that they have explicit anti-harassment policies, which means not just please don't harass people, but having a detailed set of documents about how to collect and react to complaints about harassment, how to record those reports, how to respond to them, and also how to document them in a transparent manner. So hopefully this will help both help us monitor what is happening at our conferences and take steps to prevent more of these problems. We also helped create a steering committee for the S&P Symposium. So the other conferences that we oversee have long had steering committees, and IEEE S&P was the one sort of odd one out. And so in practice, it was supervised by some combination of the TC officers plus various ad hoc committees. And that seemed a little bit silly, given that this is our flagship conference. And so we've actually set up a formal steering committee that will look at long-term policies for S&P. So the day-to-day running of the conference will stay with the general chairs. The day-to-day paper review will stay with the program committee. The steering committee is more about thinking about long-term policies as to, say, how many deadlines there should be, or having revised policies and things like that, and also helping with some of the traditional activities that the ad hoc committees would do, such as selecting the next junior PC chair. And the goal is to have people serving on this for 5 years with a maximum of 10, so we have some continuity and some institutional memory. And we're trying to draw from people who've been on both the PC side of things, the general committee side of things, and people who are generally prominent and active in service to the broader security and privacy community. So the initial set of committee members are shown here, and hopefully these are all names that you recognize. They're all people who have spent a lot of time contributing to security and privacy, not just at our conferences, but broadly to the community. And they've very graciously volunteered to step up and join this committee. And they've already weighed in on some of the important topics that I'm covering in this presentation. So I mentioned earlier that we're looking at expanding the having a actually dedicated admin, and this is motivated in part by the fact that the sort of, IT infrastructure has grown more complex for hosting these conferences, and that's not just because of the move to online conferences, but also the fact that many of our conferences are moving to ongoing submissions, which makes everything a little bit more complicated on the back end. Our web presence and email are all maintained by volunteers who were official volunteers once upon a time and have moved on to other things, but are still graciously helping us out in their spare minutes. So we don't want to impose on them any more than we need to. And so we're in the process of interviewing and hopefully hiring somebody soon for this. All right, so that brings us to the fun part, which is awards. And without further ado, these awards are for recognizing people who have been of service to the broader TCSP community. And so the very first one goes to Alvaro Cardenas, who you should all be familiar with after this year's conference. You may or may not know that he was also the vice general chair the year before, the treasurer the year before that, and also served as the student travel chair for 4 years, plus a year as the donations chair. So Alvaro has gone above and beyond in his service to the community. We are very grateful for all the time and energy he's put in, and there will be a fancy plaque headed your way, Alvaro. So we're very... On a related note, we're also giving a award to Alina Aprea, who was the senior PC chair this year, the junior PC chair the year before, and she helped oversee both ongoing submissions on a monthly basis, the transition to quarterly submissions, and just did a really tremendous amount of work and did it with flair and really got everything done that needed to get done, and we're very grateful to her 2 long years of service. And the final award this year is going to Sumesh Shah, who was the chair for our Test of Time Award committee this year. And Test of Time committee is, again, one of those things that's kind of above and beyond what we normally ask of our community members. And when we asked Sumesh, he immediately said yes and dove right into it, assembled the committee, was very enthusiastic about getting them together, looking at all of these historic papers and choosing a good award. And so we're grateful for his participation, even though it meant lots and lots of emails. All right, and there will be plaques in the mail at some point to all 3 of you. I'm sorry, I can't bring you up on stage and take pictures and clap in person. Okay, so the next step is that we need to vote for the next vice chair. So we do this every 2 years, and the vice chair serves for 2 years and then spends the next 2 years after that as the chair of Tcsp. It is a non-trivial job. It involves a lot of record keeping, attention to detail, responsiveness to emails, and a lot of behind-the-scenes maneuvering and negotiating and keeping everything rolling. And so it's often a thankless job, and so I'm very glad that we actually managed to find somebody who is willing to step up and be nominated for this position. So many of you already know Gabriela. She was the general chair in 2020 and very smoothly managed our quite last-minute transition to an entirely online conference after having already done all the logistics for the in-person conference. She was also the vice chair and registration chair before that, and served as the workshops chair before that too. And so she brings a lot of experience with S&P to the table, including a lot of organizational experience that I personally lack. And so I'm hoping that she will be confirmed as TCSP chair. And to make it official, we have to conduct a vote of everybody who is joining into this business meeting. So if you could take a moment and go to the polls tab on the right-hand side. So in the same sort of side window where you see the chat happening, there's a tab at the top that says polls. And I would encourage you to click the I approve answer there. Of course, you can choose the other option as well. And that will be our official vote to welcome Gabriela into her role as the TCSP chair. So I'll give you a minute to think about that and file your vote. Okay, so hopefully you've had time to enter your vote, and we will move on to the next item. If you have not, feel free to continue doing that in the background. Yes, please vote. All right, the last topic that I wanted to bring up briefly was this notion of an ethics board. So we saw that there was the Hypocrites Commit paper that was discussed in the PC chair's opening remarks, and also during our ethics panel yesterday. And at the TC level, in addition to the sort of tactical changes that are being made at the conference level, we wanted to think about whether there were opportunities here to create better long-term support for doing ethical security research. And one form that might take would be to create some standing committee of experts who would be available not just to the PC, but also to authors. So authors who are at institutions that either don't have an IRB or don't have an IRB that's versed in computer security notions could reach out proactively to this board and say, hey, we're thinking about doing this activity. We're going to do this experiment of dropping cats out the window. Is that something that would be considered ethical? And hopefully they can get some feedback quickly that no, you should not drop cats. And we can sort of forestall some of these problems before they even reach the review setting. But it would still be open to the review side as well, so that PCs could reach out to the board and say, hey, we've got this paper that looks like it might be dubious from an ethical standpoint. Can we get some of your thoughts on what we should do in this situation? I think ideally we would amortize the effort of creating this board and the coordination of the board across security conferences. And we are fortunate at the TCSP level that we already have our own umbrella of 4 or 5 conferences that this could apply to. But I think it would be even better if we could coordinate this with, say, Usenix Security, CCS, NDSS, and other conferences like that. Again, because I think there's a lot of overlap between these communities. I think the notion of what is ethical hopefully is agreed upon across these different communities. And so I think that would be the best way to make it more sustainable, but I'm interested in any thoughts on how we can increase sustainability, particularly given, as was discussed in the panel, there have been efforts like this before from individual conferences, and they, in several cases, lasted for a year or two and then kind of faded out. So if there are thoughts on how to make this a more self-sustaining, or if you are a representative of one of these other security conferences, please get in touch. And if you are able to post a comment or question in the channel, I can try and keep up with that as well. Okay, I'm not seeing any ethical questions or dilemmas in the chat, so I think maybe the best thing to do is, if you have thoughts on this matter, email me or the rest of the TCSP organization, and we will work in the background to try and make something happen here. So that concludes the business meeting. Try to keep things short and sweet here, since it is the very end of the conference. Thank you for staying around to the bitter end, and thank you for your support of the conference and the broader computer technical committee on security and privacy.